Coming to you potentially live from London. Live if you're listening to it live, not live if you're listening to it on a recording.
Jeff is live, but I am dead inside. So
It's
all is as it should be in the Meet the Soccer's universe.
exactly as you foretold.
I know. It's like some people are born to be miserable, and I'm one of them.
That's true. And yeah, you were pretty true to form. Although I have to say, you took it like a champ yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's get to why I'm miserable and why Jeff doesn't seem miserable, shall we? So we are potting to you live from Poddington Station, Jeff's house in
Oh,
London.
that's good wordplay.
Thank you. I just came up with it. We are in London. We are in separate rooms. We do not know how to do podcast sound tech.
I'll tell you what, that Bobby Lee sure makes podcasting look easy. He just sits in the same room and he talks to people and it sounds great every time.
So you expect me to believe Mark Maron's like great at computers?
I honestly wonder. Well, no, I think he's like the last guy who had a podcast and doesn't know shit about the internet because like he had a radio show, so he probably had some like intern that came along and did it for him, and then he became wildly popular, and now he never has to.
Man, why does everyone else have it better than us, Jeff?
Why does every single person, starting with Mark Maron, have it better than us?
Mark Maron and the others all have it better than
Yep.
us.
Mark Maron, best life ahead of us.
Then Chris Hemsworth, Michelle Obama, and then us. All
Obama's
right.
surprisingly low. That man is deeply depressed.
Well, get it. Speaking about deep depression, we just had the fifth
Hmm.
ever
I
El
think
Meet
you
the
were
Soccericos
attempting
derby.
to explain what we were talking about and just decided against it. Before
We're,
those keeping track at home, we
yeah.
were talking about the Manchester United Arsenal game that it transpired yesterday. And it was a very close game with wild swings in both directions, with lots of VAR action, which is what the fans want. Both stealing a goal from from Man United, and giving Arsenal. I mean, it gave and it took, didn't it? Because it took a penalty away from Arsenal. It didn't award a penalty that some have said should have been a penalty on Iheanacho. And I have to say,
And
upon further
Nacho?
review, I want to say,
Is he on Leicester?
who am I thinking? Garnacho.
We had like multiple Ian Nacho puns Jeff and I were debating as the title for this right
And
before.
and
So
you were so polite to not say, "What are you talking about?" You just were like going with it, like, "Well, maybe we have better ideas than that."
we didn't.
Uh,
but yeah, like the VAR giveth and the VAR taketh away, especially when you're playing against Varsenal, which is a new
oh,
nickname I just gave you that probably doesn't have any basis in statistics overall. But it was a match that Jeff and I were both in attendance for live, which so rarely gets to happen, and it's the first live El Meet the Soccericos derby that we attended together. Correct?
true. First, very first,
I've been to one, but by myself.
right? Now you've been to two, and if I keep going with you, I'll never catch up.
Both of them were 3-1 scores at Emirates. Just this is the first one
Wow,
that hurt. This is the
I
first
gotta
one that
get
was
you. I
painful.
gotta get you an Arsenal season ticket.
I don't know if that's a good idea. But I will allow you to transition into Jeff's gloating corner. So take it away, Jeff. Say all the things that make you happy. I will try not to listen.
I'll say this: I think you guys very easily could have won that game. I think it was a close game. I think it was an action-packed game. That said, if I may be a slight dick, I think we were like easily the better team, but it was just the kind of game where a few millimeters here and there kind of determine the outcome. And there were some really, there were some close chances on both sides. So
Is it problematic or bad that you said let me be a slight dick and I was like or macro penis?
I didn't hear that, but that is
Okay.
good
Well, I
joking.
didn't know it was in my head. I'm sharing it now.
Oh, okay. That's why I didn't hear it.
You didn't hear it because I was concerned. Yeah, I agree with you. Like I feel like my nature is to try and call it like I see it instead of wearing purely red tinted spectacles. I do think that we would have been even more competitive without, kind of an injury crisis
Yeah.
happening at the moment, which happens. Uh, and a lot of our important signings have arrived only just, or arrived 2 weeks ago with a back injury, or arrived too late to even be registered for the match. I don't know if that would have changed the outcome, but it would have given Ten Hag more options, which, can't hurt. But
Yeah.
yeah, it felt like a game of fine margins. But being away to Arsenal always got a hand advantage to a good side at home. So,
Yeah.
what can I say? I mean, it felt like I could only recognize two or three before the substitutions were made the second half. Two or three periods of play where United kept the ball for like a minute or two.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was very pinball.
It was nice to see, like, the ball was moving around on the carpet, and it was very, like, it was a nice game to watch aesthetically, I will say.
For your team had way more build up,
You guys had some
sustained
nice
build up.
counters, but you're playing an away game.
It's like releasing Rashford with a great ball, and then it's up to him to try and shimmy his way through three retreating defenders, which only works when he's in peak form, I think. When he tries to do it without that. He did have that one moment of magic where we went up 1-0,
Sure.
and the stadium went silent, and I was like, oh, are we going to steal this?
That's funny that you remember it that way, because obviously we both have very, like, flawed, biased memories of this game, and that's not even discussing our alcohol intake or anything else. But I was just going to say that I kind of remembered that moment as there was, like, this initial what the moment in the crowd, and then I remember the Arsenal fans roaring back, and it felt like, as much as this probably isn't true, it felt like the momentum of the crowd, like, led directly to the equalizer. You know what I mean? Like, I remember there being kind of a groundswell afterwards. I was like, wow, even the fans are going to be into this the whole way, even if we're going to get, like, kicked in the butt.
They didn't feel devastated. They felt annoyed.
That's interesting. Okay, so you kind of remember it in a similar way to me then, actually. But you
No, I
do
do
remember the
remember
quiet.
that. But when the goal went in, it went like for like
Oh,
5-10 seconds of like total silence after it had been cheering constantly. So I noticed that. And if you're listening at home, let me help you paint this picture. So I have a tattoo you can't see on the podcast, but it's basically a scarlet letter identifying me as a Manchester United fan. I'm standing next to Jeff in a what was it? Urban Outfitters weirdo hoodie in 81-degree temperatures to try and cover my arm up, and I'm not even.
This man refused a light long sleeve shirt. This man refused a light long sleeve shirt.
I did refuse that, but I'm standing there with all the Arsenal fans. I can't even go like, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't.
You were remarkably, like, I have to compliment your poker face, because even, like, I've done this before. I was in the away section at Crystal Palace for the first game of the season last year, and I was good. I didn't cheer for the Arsenal goals. Like, I was like, because I could kind of see it coming a little bit in the play, and I was like, all right, steel yourself, be cool. But what did get me was there was one point where Jesus had, like, dribbled two guys, like, flicks it over to Odegaard, who clearly should have shot and buried it. And instead he, like, plays around and gets Odegaardy. And I just went, come on, dang it. And then I was like, get it out. I mean, get it out of
Come
here.
on, Palatians. Come on, Crystal Palatians. Well, you don't know who's around you, right? Like, even if you feel like the general vibe of the crowd is okay and positive or, like, tolerable, you don't know if the guy next to you is going to be the one guy with a knife who's in a real bad mood that day. And Roy Keane was assaulted at this match, so maybe I should have been afraid.
It's crazy to think that that it's even possible to consume enough alcohol that you go, who is a good person for me to fuck with right now? is that pussy Roy Keane.
The inspiration for Roy Kent? Come on.
I would love it if it was just Brett Goldstein just embracing the character, just growling in Roy Keane's face, and then getting
he's
his
too
ass kicked.
nice. He's too nice a guy.
Um,
But basically, yeah, I was trying to keep my shit together, keep it quiet. But then Arsenal responds immediately with an Odegaard goal. Jeff, I didn't even see it. Did you see it? I wasn't even looking in that moment.
I'm trying. I have like a crystal clear vision in my head of the Jesus goal and the Rice goal that came later to go up. I'm trying to remember the Odegaard goal. I need to like
It was within 2 minutes of the Rashford
right.
single solo goal.
I remember that because I just remember thinking like, oh, we're back. Okay, this isn't gonna be because when you give up that early goal, is like maybe we're just gonna watch 45 minutes of bad football and then lose.
I hoped, but
That's what you were hoping for.
But unfortunately, it's the same old Schuyler. So, so it's basically two tales of the same match here. We go up by a goal and immediately look scared. And while we're playing on the counter, Arsenal was imposing for big sections of that match, especially after some defensive subs were made. We already started with an injured back line. We were missing our starting left back, and our starting center back in Varane. Then we lose Martinez at, was it halftime or early in the second half? We lost him. Lindelof got a yellow. He got taken off. We end up with Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans, who is 35. He's basically Jeff and my age. But that's the center back partnership against like really great pacey Arsenal attackers. It felt like the loss was coming the second those changes had to be made. So back to my earlier comment about injury crisis. Any team missing most of their back line is going to concede, except City.
Should we spend some time bitching about the ref?
I kind of don't remember the ref. I just remember feeling like what metaphor will not get me in trouble here? I was an other person surrounded by mainstreamers.
Oh, I see.
So basically, I wasn't focused. I was focusing on like the big moments of the match, but like very aware of what was happening around me. Constant screaming for the death of the ref. Like a few guys were just like clearly real mad. It wasn't everybody. It wasn't the collective, but it was like 10 dudes that were like saying all sorts of stuff that had me on edge.
There's a chippiness to a Premier League game that I don't think you see outside of Philadelphia in America, maybe in Boston, but like there's always there's a current in the air where you just feel like everyone is two dumb things away from getting punched in the teeth. Like it doesn't take much from what I can tell. And it's a real credit that neither of us have ever been punched in the teeth at one of these games because we are exactly
Survivors.
the demographic.
We are survivor as fuck.
We both have very punchable and, dare I say, American-looking faces.
I do wonder, Jeff, if it was the opposite fixture, how would you have felt, do you think? Like, any different? The same?
You mean if this was at Old Trafford?
If we were in Manchester, trying to find food, failing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would feel hungrier probably based on my knowledge of Manchester.
But if we were at Old Trafford and it was a big match where, lots on the line for both teams, and United goes behind, ties it, like the whole string of events.
Yeah.
In the home end, which is, 3/4 of the stadium. But like, even walking out after the match, I felt like I was like a Jedi with the full hood wrapped over him. Like, pay no attention to that man.
I guess now I've done it for an away game where we lost and an away game where we won. And that is a weird feeling of like being mixed in with the crowd. You didn't even get a win. So they're all like so full of themselves and screaming and singing. And you're just like, let me just get home.
Let me leave.
Dying. Let me leave. Like, it's like you literally, for me, I just want to leave the vibe of like a triumphant Chelsea or City or whatever, insert some terrible team. But I just want to like leave where that is a thing.
So imagine the multi-mile walk home we had, where
Yeah.
most of the rest of the supporters are also walking home. It's like
And I,
you're
I was
Clockwork
starting them up.
Oranged.
I was starting them up in a lot of songs, so that probably was hard for you.
Yeah, Jeff's a real piece of shit in case you haven't been following the pod.
I
Um,
did. I feel like I celebrated like 5% less because you were there at the game because I was like, well, this is really awesome, but I don't want to be rude.
but before the match, I was like, Jeff, if you come into a situation where you have to kick me, just like pick a less breakable part of my body to kick.
Yeah, we did have a plan, which is for safety.
We've seen all the Sasha Baron Cohen work. We know you need to have a way to disappear when people get
Mm,
mad at you. But all overall, other than the result, it was still great we got to do that. We each paid a small fortune to make it happen.
we did. It's I hate to say it, but the more I say it all the time, but it's never going to be untrue. The more rules you have to keep out touts, the more people will need touts to get around the rules.
What are
That's
touts?
scalpers.
Oh, scalpers. Oh,
That's what they say
did you
here.
go
They call them.
British? Did you go British on me?
If you're trying to keep touts out the queue, then
Is it not just hashtag touts out? Is that going to be the campaign for kicking racism out of soccer, but for scalping?
they were going to, but it sounds too much like Scott's Tots, and it bummed everyone out to think about it.
Scott's Tots, the Office episode. If you haven't watched it, pause the pod. We will wait.
Welcome back. How was it?
Yeah.
Scott's Tots. Pretty awkward, huh?
You feel sick to your stomach now, don't you?
Yeah. Really triggers the old
Hey,
white
Mr.
guilt.
Scott, what you gonna do? Shall we keep going, Jeff? I feel like we could talk a lot about this trip.
We could.
But I feel like the match, I have nothing more to say. Oh, I have one more thing to say, and I'll give you a counterpoint.
Okay. Good.
Rasmus Højlund coming over for 70 million something from Atalanta, which, as we all know, is the above ground portion of Atlantis.
Yeah.
The found city of Atlanta. Atlantis? Atlanta? I don't know. Atlanta. He was delayed in his debut because he had some early signs of his back being broken in half, which we're familiar with from Marcus Rashford / our personal lives. He came on, and Jeff, what was your impression of him? I saw a very pacey, raw, but potentially terrifying in the future forward.
I really think that it's a good look for you. And I think not only, I think it just adds something to that entire, because if there's anything, I think there's sometimes a complacency about the forwards at United where, like, in a vacuum, I think Rashford is a great player, but he's prone to disappear for 3 games because, like, I don't know.
Especially when he's playing up top, which is not his comfort zone.
So I like the idea of having a chaos agent who's just going to run his balls off all game. Like, I think every team can do with a guy like that.
He's apparently a good finisher. He has like one of the highest goals per 90 rankings in Serie A, even though he only subbed for half the season. But like I kind of wish this match had happened 2 months from now.
Okay.
I think it would have been, I don't want to say more even because who knows what's going to happen in 2 months. But like I think he would have been more ready for it. Maybe he'd been starting.
Yeah.
Because Martial's not it, right? Like you weren't afraid of him.
Yeah. I don't know. He's a guy where it's almost the same level as Dele Alli, where I'm like, what the fuck happened to this guy who was terrifying 3 years ago? Should be in the prime of his career right now. Should be, just setting the world on fire. And I don't know.
He's 27. You shouldn't be washed up as a forward.
Yeah, this should be the very prime,
I think he scored against, was it Liverpool in his debut season? Like Martial, we just take goals from the game. Now it looks like if he gets one, it's because someone put it on a platter for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. I don't know. Do you think that's what it is? Do you think it's a mentality? Like he doesn't want to take it anymore. He doesn't have the same hunger.
Well, injuries, but like I
Yeah.
think if he was at your team or Chelsea or City or even Spurs, he'd have been gotten rid of. But we've just been settling for broken parts for a couple seasons now. So it's a bummer. So that's what this section's called, the same old Schuyler.
Oh. I instead of a counterpoint to that, I am just going to talk about a different point, which
Go for it.
is um, I have always, as a guy who spent way too many time looking at my own instant replays on FIFA, um, I can tell you that where you say the ball is kicked when you're lining up an offsides replay can really change because they say that it's 0.02 seconds that you're looking at when you're looking frame by frame because they shoot 50 frames per second. And so when you're looking at that instant replay, the jump between one picture and the other is 0.02 seconds. In that amount of time, someone on Reddit did the math. I'm sure it's right. A player moves 5 centimeters. So that is the new, like at a full sprint there. That's the, it's the difference between here and here. But we have seen guys routinely in the VAR era get goals called back. One of them happened yesterday, not with Iheanacho, luckily, but with Garnacho. But it was Garnacho, right?
Yeah, it was going
Yeah.
to show.
But I think that to me, if we know that the margin for error is 5 centimeters, then we shouldn't be calling people offsides for things that are less than 5 centimeters. You know what I mean? Like the technology has a grace period to me just built into it that we should be taking seriously.
Are you familiar with the rules that they're trialing for, I think, next season? Which is, it's the attacker can be what we know as offsides as long as his whole body isn't
He needs
offsides.
some part onside instead of
Yeah,
everything. Yeah.
which in a way is maybe easier to enforce.
Yeah.
It means defenders would have to be on their toes though, but maybe that means more goals. I don't know. How do you feel about that? I know that's kind of the point you're walking up
Yeah.
to.
Well, I mean, it's a slightly because I think that you'll have the same problem with this. There will still be close calls, no matter what you decide the call is. I do. I kind of like the idea of just giving. I don't know. I would rather watch a game with 3 goals than none. So like every little tweak and advantage you can give to the offense, I feel like generally that makes things better to watch. So maybe
And
it's a good idea.
in theory, it also really suits, like the rule will help pacey teams or teams
Yeah.
with pacey players because they're the ones that are trying to make runs in to beat the back line. Your slower target forwards probably less interested in doing that.
I
Um,
mean, it does. There's this whole style of play where you have like a 39-year-old Italian man who's extremely handsome and he's playing center back and he's slow as fuck, but you just sit back the whole time and like it makes you wonder if it's gonna make some make some people extinct. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna become an even younger man's game because you got to have pace to play anywhere on the back line. Like really,
I think that should be the case, though. I mean,
it seems like it would if you fully sort of weaponize this game. Like it would,
oh,
there wouldn't be
but
room.
from a philosophy standpoint, I agree with you that like I think that pace it makes the game exciting. Ergo, more players with pace equals more exciting match.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Like you've watched a fast back and forth basketball game versus Sunday pickup. It's
Yeah,
way less watchable when it's slow.
true story.
Um,
Speaking
all right,
of crazy wonkish refereeing ideas, do we have time for a quick aside?
we have about 40 minutes, so yeah.
I was going to say, do you have strong opinions on? I believe that this is Wenger's pet project now within FIFA, but turning throw-ins into kick-ins because it's meant to be an advantage for the throwing team, but it's turned itself into a disadvantage where
Because it's
that's when you
hard
get
to inbound the
pressed.
ball.
Whereas, like, so Wenger has said that you should put the ball on the line, like close to where it went out, and then you should, like, from there, basically, you get like an indirect free kick.
So you can't score, but you could technically on a throw-in, it's a corner basically,
Can you
like on the
throw the
sideline.
ball in the goal? Like, if it doesn't touch anyone, is that a goal?
I don't know. I'm sure. I
Because
think
I
that
would
happened in
honestly
recent years.
like the side when you think about it, the sideline is so far away from the goal that I would actually be okay with it being a direct free kick because like if you can ring it up from 40 yards out with the goalie knowing it's coming, like I want to see that.
The FA says a goal cannot be scored directly from a throw-in, so
Gotcha.
that answers
It's got to
that.
roll
But
over somebody's boot.
but right now, a corner in the offensive end of the field is effectively a corner. Or sorry, not a corner. A throw-in is effectively a corner with those rules anywhere in the offensive side of the pitch.
You can score from a corner though, right?
You
Because
can,
you
but
get
like you're
the
still whipping it in.
Olympiaco. Yeah,
You're
yeah.
you're,
I mean,
you're
it's got to
still
be that
whipping it in.
weird. Yeah,
But in this case, that would mean like right now, let's say that there's like somewhere between 10 and 20 corners a game.
yeah. That's the thing. It would slow down the game, wouldn't it?
It would, but there'd be like 50 corners a game effectively if each throw-in had the same impact.
That's interesting.
I mean, I'd be interested to see it.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that like there's got to be like a under 19 tournament somewhere that they could trial this at, because that would.
They always trial like in the shittiest leagues, like they're testing cosmetics on smaller animals.
Oh man, I don't want to touch that, even though I do. But that's what those animals said. Am I right?
Yeah. Next year for Serie C, we're gonna do only drag. Everyone's gonna play in drag. We're gonna see if it ups the ratings, if it more goals per game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like seeing the experimental ideas. Every sport.
I'm ready
tries to
for
do
an
this.
XPL, like a Vince McMahon owned Extreme Premier League, where
Like a
right in front of the
Mario
goal there's a
Strikers?
trampoline, and
Was there a soccer game on video games that was like a violent soccer game?
there should have been. That would have
Red
been
card
fun, like
soccer?
like a NFL Blitz or like what was the basketball one with Bill Lam or was it Bill
NBA
Lambier?
Jam?
No, well he was in that too, I think. But there was one that was like Bill Lambier's like street tough brawl or something, and like in the whole game you're like pushing each other and stuff.
I had Jordan versus Bird, which was a one-on-one basketball game. Fun.
Wow. They really they had such cool ideas for video games back then. And then this is like relevant to Schuyler and I's recent travels because Schuyler has an emulator that has like 100 something, I don't know what, 400 video games on it.
Let's not say what I have or don't have over a legally binding podcast, Jeff.
This is a legally binding one? We were getting this
Yeah,
one notarized? Oh shit, I'm sorry.
our lawyers listen to every pod, which is a problem.
All of our lawyers, I would say, listen to all of our pods. That's true in a sense.
Where were you? You were talking about how I have potentially a video game that I have not affirmed.
We can't say
denied.
whether or not he has or doesn't have it, but if he did,
I know a video game.
and if I were to have borrowed it, then it would be fair to say that there were lots of fun-looking games that made me nostalgic that had the worst fucking gameplay in history. And like honestly, like the graphics, I don't even mind. I kind of like prefer like shitty old graphics in a way because it's like I like the aesthetic of it. But the games themselves are like, let's play tennis. Boop boop. Like you can't play tennis. Boop boop. Like you suck at tennis, and it's like you can't even get the ball over the net, and you're like, no, this doesn't even make sense. Why isn't it trying to like teach me or something? And you just quit. That's what.
What do you think is the best individual sports game you ever played? Any sport?
Individual sports game.
Yeah. I need the year. I need the franchise of the sports game.
Wait, you mean like to play alone, or as in to play
to play.
one-on-one like Larry Bird and Michael Jordan?
No,
okay,
no.
not
Just like, is it like Madden 97 or whatever it is? NHL Live. Or no, it was maybe NBA Live.
I was a huge fan of the football and basketball games, like very American.
The 2K ones?
No, so I liked Madden for football, and I would say I was like pretty damn good at Madden through like 2008 maybe. And then at the same time I was also really into like the MLB games and like those games.
One? Do you know? You don't remember
I think that was 2K5 that I was like playing a lot.
So from the Sega 2K group.
No, well, oh yeah. The software Sega. I was playing it on PlayStation, but yeah. But those ones are fun. I mean, the baseball one, like a good video baseball game you can play for hours.
I think it was, I was in college at Boston College. This is the year the Red Sox reversed the curse, but it was MVP Baseball 2004.
You know what? That's what it was. That's what I played. It wasn't 2K. It was MVP.
Because the pitching was easy. That's the whole thing. Modern games want you to like press 5 buttons to throw a pitch, and I have no interest in that.
I just want to I want to be able pretend I know how to pitch and I'm just choosing how to pitch. Like I don't want to have to learn some fake laws of physics.
Right, and there's some error ratio. It's like 20% off from where you hit it based on where
Sure.
you get it
Where
on the
you
power
yeah.
meter. But like, I just want to bat.
Yeah.
Everyone here just wants to hit a home run. That's all I want to do.
I enjoy the pitching side of those games too, though. Like especially if you're playing 2-player, and the idea of trying to trick them with the timing or get them to reach for a slider or something like that. Like I enjoy that fun stuff.
I wish we could play MVP Baseball 2004 live on the podcast right now.
Maybe one day we'll start a Patreon and then we'll put that over there as you can watch us game.
The way you say that makes it sound like it's like a very prestigious tequila company.
Yeah. Sorry. Is that what did you think I meant Patreon, the website that helps podcasters? Because I thought
we had Patreon.
Pretty clearly said. Wait, Patreon?
Patreon. Like you pay.
It's not Patreon.
No, you pay.
I wasn't even sure what you were making fun of me for. I feel like it's more authentico to pronounce it Patreon.
But they're patrons and you're paying, so the A is really an important.
Yes, but they've chosen the word Patreon, haven't they?
Am I patronizing you or patronizing you right now?
Both.
All right, Jeff. Do you want to talk about Highlander movie we're gonna make?
Oh yeah. I will tell you all about that. We can enter that into the canon of this podcast. But first, I'm going to tell you about how it's difficult to watch soccer games in the United Kingdom, where soccer comes from. Would you like to elaborate on that at all, Schuyler, or should I riff for a bit?
I wish I could dive into like a Scottish brogue right now and really nail it, but we know Neil sometimes. And
that was bad.
Yeah, that sounded like you just had indigestion, so we'll let that slide. So we were in Edinburgh, for the Edinburgh Fringe Fest. I nailed the pronunciation of the town. Could not nail the pronunciation of the English word I said after it.
Yeah. I will trust you on Patreon then.
Listen, I know Patreon because they suck money out of my wallet every month.
Do they?
So we were at the Fringe Fest looking at comedy, watching comedy, walking around, not getting into certain shows, getting in others.
You make that sound very like Night at the Roxbury, that we couldn't get into the show because of how we were dressed or something.
I mean,
do you think that was part of it?
I personally believe that about myself. You looked fine, but I looked like trash. So we were there to watch comedy, but there was a set of matches. A match weekend was while we were busy watching comedy shows, and so we thought, let's go get a drink at a bar. We'll try and watch football at the bar. 3 p.m. kickoff.
To be fair, I specifically thought, no, we won't. I think I told you that directly, and you were like, Jeff, I'm in denial.
But we went to a bar, and on my phone, Jeff, what was I watching?
You were able to watch your game, and I was able to watch you watch your game. It was great.
I know. Well, if only you had your own VPN, Jeff.
If only.
So, VPN got me in to watch, what was it? Forest? Yeah, it was the Forest match. We ended up going down 2-0 inside of 10 minutes. So Jeff wasn't even really watching the whole thing because I was struggling to watch. It was pretty bad at first. But then we got a goal back just inside of the first half. Second half begins. And then didn't we have to go to our comedy show?
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, I think I've gotten used to giving up on seeing the game completely. And you were more dedicated and more, I think, righteously angry, if I'm honest. Because I think that was something that we marveled about during the course of this is why is no one upset that they don't get to watch the thing that they love because of a dumb rule. Like,
And I pay for these services.
yeah. I mean,
where the
here
match is
especially, it's
played.
like I'm sure that there's some amount of like, I mean, definitely not to the same degree of American socialism when it comes to stadiums, but like there must be some amount of like tax invested in police and urban planning and all this other stuff that goes in and around these stadiums to get less than some guy anywhere else in the world is kind of insane.
Less than some douche from LA.
I know, dude, that you're living the high life. Even me, like I used to complain, but when I was in Austria for like $15 a month, and then it escalated to 25 without telling me, didn't like that. But I had this like Premier League service, and it came with a bunch of other sports. It came with like skiing and shit like that because it was Austria, but I could watch just about every Premier League game, and that was it. And it's like, it's to me, it's just strange. It's like, why are you making a product that we're not allowed to buy? Just give it to us,
You'd hope that with the next TV deal expiring in the semi-near future, right?
Yeah.
That the Premier League is thinking, let's make the initial investment, create our own direct-to-consumer streaming service, get our own set of commentators, do the whole thing, own the whole thing. Our customers pay, let's say, $15 a month to us. Everyone gets to watch every game. Like, I feel like the consumer's paying less to get more. The league is getting more. The only losers are BT Sport or Sky Sport or the Murdochs or some other douchebags that I don't care about.
Yeah. But that's the thing is like, unfortunately, that's a fair fight. Like, it's like the Hollywood strike where it's like, who's going to win? The 150,000 hottest people in the world, the 200,000 funniest writers in the world, or 8 billionaires that no one enjoys.
You know
But
what
the
you could
sad
even
thing
do, Jeff?
is, it's the billionaires.
You know, you could even do this. You could make it $20 a month, all matches. $5 of the 20 goes to the lower football pyramid relative to their place in the pyramid and
That
what
would be
people
great
like
because that would get
support.
you all the other cups. You know what I mean? Like, it would be great to have all this in one place.
But I'm saying even if it's only Premier League that they're showing, they could essentially like restaurants charge you in America stupid bullshit service charge to be like, our employees need health insurance, and we're like, we agree, and they're like, and we think you should pay for it. Like, if the concern about the 3 p.m. broadcast thing is that lower clubs will die, give them a part of the pie, and that objection goes away.
Yeah.
They'd be making so much money. Like, imagine a sixth division club getting money from this broadcast deal. It'd be more money than they make in 2 seasons right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it would be like none of this makes sense. Like, even if you have the goal of trying to support lower league football, which I think is a worthy goal, it's like this isn't the way to do it. This is just a way to like flush money down the drain every weekend.
Why not just have lower league times scheduled at times Premier League games aren't scheduled, and like have there almost be like a hemispheric division with when they'll be broadcast?
There is an interesting point to be made there because I think like some of the whole issue comes down to this. I don't know what you want to call it, if it's a tradition or what, but lower league games are almost always at 3 p.m. So they have like 90% of their games at that time, which is why theoretically having the Premier League off like that, it's like very valuable to them. But I just don't buy it.
But they could do they could do like matinee matches for all lower league games. You're not going to support multiple lower league clubs unless you're truly a loser and have nothing else to do with your life. But like in this case, then the Premier League games are on closer to prime time here, which makes sense.
Yeah.
It's also late enough that you get the America viewership, and then you've got all the lower leagues in the morning when people go out. Like maybe they do like breakfast when they, right before they go to the match. I think that makes sense. It would require a little reorganization.
Yeah.
But like, let's not just do the same stupid shit that works for nobody, arguably.
Right.
What'd you think of Edinburgh? Let's talk about that.
Oh man, Edinburgh it's a really cool place. Like it's this very Scottish, very mountainous kind of city. There's like hills everywhere, and then there's also something about just the architecture and the way it's built into the mountainside. Like there's this verticality to the city where you can think that you're on the, like we saw a comedian do a bit about like getting directions on his phone, and then he like thinks that he's there but he doesn't seize it, and he looks and it's like 3 stories below him somehow, and it's somehow that kind of city. Like there's a little bit of magic to it. We didn't get too touristy, like we didn't go in the castle or anything like that, but I kind of like that stuff from afar anyway. So we saw this beautiful, probably 1,015-year-old castle, whatever it is. And then there's a bunch of like more modern buildings, and it was great. Like it reminded me of like a Scottish version of South by Southwest, but like South by Southwest 10-15 years ago, when it was like pretty
I
fun.
never got to go. I always wanted to go, and I wanted someone else to pay for it.
I know. I never had anyone else pay for it, and that's what I really wanted. I'd still take that. Like it wouldn't be as fun now, but I'd be willing to use any expense account at my disposal, really.
So potential employers out there, not only would Jeff love some freelance creative direction, copywriting, he would love for you to send him to South by Southwest. If you have an extra spot you're looking to burn.
Yeah. This is true actually, I've never tried Delta One yet. So that's just, I don't know. Maybe.
Wait, is that a type of THC or is it a type of flight?
Delta One is like, it's an attempt to sell first class to people who aren't allowed to buy first class. It will work for about a week, but basically it's this sort of holistic approach to the higher tier seating, but they're not calling it business class or first class or whatever, or premium economy, because I think on some level they're hoping that people take their chances expensing it, and that it's not going to be a category that is denied yet.
Do you think part of it is that like the dated terms are like almost like class war terms, like first class, business class, coach?
I mean, yeah, they are literally like something
Economy.
a 17-year-old communist would write, like in their fan fiction. So I don't think that's helping anyone, but I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, if they actually are like trying, then maybe good for them for like coming up with a new name and not getting bogged down in the past.
What about, why don't we just call it people? Better people, best people.
That would make sense. You could just do like people and then better and best and let people sort of fill in the blanks there. That would be subtle, I think. I think if you're in the back, you'd be like, oh, I'm just people. Huh?
What if we did first class, mid tier, and then Everton would be like the back end of the plane?
Yeah, this is mid.
Everton has lots of baggage and a lot of dead weight on that flight.
It's just babies and grandparents.
What else did you like about Edinburgh? I wanted to talk about the scran.
They did have good scran. I had a haggis and egg sandwich, and it was delicious. Reminded me of Scrapple for my mid-Atlantic listeners.
Do we know what the official meaning of scran is?
Yeah, I think it just means like it's like the equivalent of grub, like in a Western. We got to rustle up some grub. Like, we got to fix up some scran.
It's funny how scran sounds weird, but when you think about it, grub is a single bug.
Yeah, true. They both are like words that sound disgusting when they're used to describe food. I feel like that's not on accident.
I enjoyed the scran as well.
I enjoyed it.
I said yes, scran to the breakfast. But
do you think Scranton, Pennsylvania, was originally called that because it was like a good town to stop in for some scran? And they're like, over in Scrantown.
A good town for some bagels, some Thomases.
Yeah. They have a good English muffin in there. Or should I call it freedom muffin?
But then would it still be a muffin, or does muffin have a different equivalent over here? Like how
a freedom muffin is an English muffin to an American in the Revolution, innit? And this how we probably talked.
I thought a crumpet was a dessert because we have butterscotch crimpets.
Yeah, that's different. Those are delicious though, like a great baked junk food.
But I thought a crumpet is a savory, like.
I think it's more like a biscuit. It's like it's something. Oh no! A crumpet is like, it's like an English muffin but better. It's like if you made an English muffin out of a pancake, because you can cook it in a pan, and then it has these like, although like there's like these little dots of air that come up, and there's like these tubes of empty space and this like dense pancake. It's really good.
Isn't it funny how many foods air is a huge part of the food?
That's true. I feel like just getting the right amount of air into stuff like that's like, you know what I mean? With the whisk, or you know what I mean? Like getting the texture right. Cookies are like that. You got to have like the
Cookies,
melted
cake.
butter, but not melted, but like softened butter or whatever.
But what else? What else is good? Like even like some snack foods, like a Dorito 3D is nothing if not like flavor around air.
I do think like that is a big consideration with any sort of flavored snack is like, I don't know. I just remember my biology teacher in high school doing a diagram about the ratio between surface area and volume. And because
Hmm.
somebody asked her, why aren't our cells bigger? Which is a disgusting thought. But she basically said, because the rate, like a 3 by 3 cube, the volume is 9. 1 by 1 cube, the volume is 1. You know what I mean? So it's like the ratio is off because the outside of that 3 by 3 cube is huge, or is not big as big. And so basically, like you want it to be tiny. And God, I thought that there was a reason that was going to connect to another thought I had. What were we talking about right before that?
Scran. We were talking about Scran, Jeff.
Oh no, we were talking about the air and food, but I do think like the getting the right size of the junk food so that it can be coated as much as possible in the flavorings, but also provide a bit of tender mouthfeel when you act. It needs to be the right size to eat.
Little TMF.
TMF.
All right, I know it's not Edinburgh specifically, but what is your best snack of the trip? Best snack of the area because you live here generally?
Oh man, best snack of the trip. We've done some snacking.
We're becoming the doughboys right now. That's what this is.
We we were staying in an Airbnb in Edinburgh that had a giant glass jar of some sort of like local caramel bars. It's kind of like the consistency of a Nutty Buddy bar, if you know those, but with a caramel flavor instead of peanut butter. And then there were some that were like a crumb finish, if you will. And then there were some that
With
were like coated in
coconut
chocolate.
crumb.
Was it coconut crumb?
There was coconut
I
because
didn't
I had
taste
one
that
of the
much
other ones.
coconut.
It's ground up coconut, but I thought it was good. It wasn't like a Mounds. It wasn't like a
Well, I don't
disappointment
remember the
snack.
brand, but if this sounds like your Scottish confectionery company and you would like to sponsor Meet the Soccers for just $1 a day, we could we could tell them your actual brand name. We could look it up. But anyway, Schuyler did walk in on me. I was like cleaning out my backpack from the trip today, and then he saw me unloading like a handful of these bars that apparently, like as a last ditch effort to extract value for our Airbnb, I just grabbed like a ton of these snacks that they had kindly left. The
To our
cheap part of
Airbnb
me.
hosts. Yeah, to our Airbnb hosts. Thank you for the stay. We were very tidy and clean, so yes, we did take all of your snack bars.
I was in such a weird place mentally because I've spent the last like month before you got here with my Vietnamese mother-in-law who saves everything and is actually like the other day we were at the dinner table and she was like, these napkins are too big. What are we having, a party? And then she sat with scissors and she cut all the napkins in half so that we could get double the use out of them. And so, of course, like imagine what she would have done with the limited but a small but unlimited theoretically buffet presented to us at our Airbnb. So I was like, oh, I should take this loaf of bread and bananas home. The two
Yeah,
most
I had to be
fragile
like, I had to be like,
foodstuffs.
Jeff, don't do that. don't take the
Like,
bananas from the.
Schuyler, let me have the most fragile foodstuffs in human existence, and I'll drag them on a train for 8 hours from Scotland to London.
Yeah, a sleeper train, which we could also mention that because that was its own little Hogwartsian experience.
I was enchanted by it. I slept like a baby, and I would like to travel large swaths of the country via sleeper train at some point in my life. Schuyler, how was it for you?
It felt a lot like the Arsenal United match in that Jeff thought it was great when it was all over, and it was the longest 2 hours of my life. No, it was a fine way to travel because we got to see one more show while we were in Edinburgh. Dear
The
friend
great
Sophie
Sophie
Santos.
Santos, yeah. Friend of the pod, would you say, now that I've met her and enjoyed Chinese takeout with her?
They totally crushed. we got to meet Sophie's partner. We got to hang out and
That was
hear
cool.
about sort of what it's like to host a show in Fringe Fest.
Yeah. It turns out expensive from what I gather.
Expensive, difficult, but I don't know. Sophie crushed it. So ultimately worth it
I'm
if you're
I'm
talented.
sure a great investment for her in particular. It would be that
Um,
would be sad if you were one of the people that went, worked really hard, spent a ton of money, and then just like bombed to no one for a month. And then you're like, well, at least I'm 10 grand in debt.
it would be kind of like hosting Meet the Soccers.
But we're not 10 grand in debt.
This would be a great place for me to hit the outro music, just like.
Do 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 do.
No, we're not 10 grand in debt, but we're some.
Are we in debt at all? I thought we had mostly just paid for a few expenses.
Have we had any revenue?
Do we have any sort of we don't have any sort of corporate credit card you haven't told me about or anything?
No, we have my personal credit card, and I believe yours in some
And mine as
instances.
well.
But since we want to do a good podcast,
Yes.
and we want to compare and contrast with our peers and our superiors,
Superiors.
which I just abbreviated. We are going tomorrow in London to see Talk of the Devils, the Athletics Manchester United podcast live.
Do you think when they booked this, because I'm just putting this together, this is a Manchester podcast that has booked in London right after the game. That can't be by happenstance, right?
I think the journalists live in London and commute for the matches. That's what I think.
Okay. Because, I mean, we were saying this the other day, but I think probably one of the top 5, if not top 10 teams in London is Manchester United in terms of like support. But it does feel a bit like a bit of hubris to have a giant live podcast record in enemy territory just after the game. So,
Well, I don't know if anyone would pay $30 to show up to a theater in Manchester for this.
true.
But I do wonder that answer that question. Which club has the most fans in London? Because if they're including clubs outside of London, United is somewhere on that list, right?
For sure.
But
Please tell me Arsenal's the best. Please.
I can't find it because that specific question hasn't been asked on Google.
London has more Arsenal fans. It's a fact. Chelsea has more international fans. Some article in the Sun.
But it's such a specific question to be trying to get a data set for of all football clubs globally, fans in London.
Or even like this one is doing one of my least favorite journalistic practices of like making a map, but going by the political borders of the map and being like, oh, did you know that like people in this giant area called Texas like are racist? And it's like, well, Texas is a big place. It's not, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I hate this. So this one basically has like each county's favorite team, and London is counted as a county and it's Arsenal. But
would you believe a Virgin Media poll with an audience of 1,500 people if it was for football?
I would take it with a grain of salt. I think it's going to miss. I think that's like a relatively small sample size, and London is a crazily diverse place, but it would be interesting.
I think this, the poll reveals that 18% of Manchester United fans in the UK live in London, compared to only 14% in Manchester. Of course, London, much bigger population.
So there's more United supporters in London than there are in Manchester.
Probably.
Is that what that means?
1,500 person poll, if you can believe it.
I buy it. I mean, because
By the way, same is true for Liverpool.
I buy it just because like London is such a crazy, like it's just such a different like level of city to anything else in the UK. Really, like every other city in the UK is like a big town, whereas London is like, I mean, pretty much by any standard, a massive, massive city. But
so 55% of the Premier League fans support their local club, and live around 83 miles on average away from the location of their club's ground. That's pretty far.
Yeah, that's wild. It's
That's
different
wild.
than the sort of mental image you get of like the Coronation Street where, all the like dads and sons go walk off down the road. I mean, but realistically, how many people do you know that have that? It's like that's like the fantasy or the dream, but the real life is you're just on a toilet by yourself scrolling endlessly on like Reddit gunners.
Right, you could have been born a mile away from Emirates, but through your life you probably had to move further away just to afford to live in London.
True.
But then that doesn't answer why Manchester United fans
Well, no, but I think
do
it
what
also
they
has the
do.
opposite effect where like people move here for a job, because they're
Everyone lives here.
Manchester is a wasteland. They don't have a restaurant yet. It's tough, but
They have to put an article in the Manchester Evening News when you and I visit. That's how
to be fair,
shit
I
it is
saw a
there.
much different and better side of Manchester when I went with Rich and Dick. That
So
was that other
people
guy's name.
listening definitely know who those people are. But also, if you are a fan of the pod and you live in Manchester, this is your chance to give us an agenda for the next time that we visit Old Trafford. I would love for us to have a great Manchester experience. I am 0 for 3 at this point.
I feel like we're gonna get recommended like chip shops that closed 10 years ago, or like a sort of money
Do you
laundering
think
front that isn't like nobody eats in that restaurant, and you should know that.
Do you think there'd be some like football player pun chip shop that we would get to go to, like Nemanja Vid Chips?
Oh man, you should do that. You should go around and rename all the like restaurants in Manchester after Manchester legends.
Nemanja Matit Chicken. Are you? So what is your? So yeah, hubris aside, are you at all interested about this podcast from a football podcasting
I
perspective?
am just interested, yeah, in like benchmarking against how another group does it. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm totally interested. I'm always interested to see like whenever something else is working for someone.
I think this is gonna be way more scholastic and way less top bents
Oh, really?
than ours or even the other good football podcasts. It's way more like the journalists. It's gonna be like Lori Whitwell will be one of them. Carl Anka will be the other. I know the names of the journalists just because they're the ones writing the articles.
Hmm. So you think
Um,
it'll be, but that's like, these are like people who usually break stories. Like these are like
yes,
Ornsteins of the world, but it won't be like some like tactical analysis kind of
they'll
thing.
talk a little bit about that, but it's still pretty readable as far as the articles go. So I think they're just gonna tell us the story of what happened and explain kind of what happened from an
Right.
idea perspective,
Right.
and maybe what's wrong, talking about any interview comments, like that kind of stuff. But I think you're gonna probably hear just as much about Arsenal as you will about United, just from the fact of the rawness and the recency.
Yeah, I imagine. It'll also be interesting to hear like, I don't know, I think it's so easy to develop blind spots within your own club or develop like players that you can't see their faults. And it'll be interesting to hear, I don't know, our players as discussed by United scum.
Oh, the journalists are actually pretty fair
You think they'll
because
be, yeah.
because a lot of them were
Are
United
they
fans growing
fans?
up. I
Okay.
mean, you become kind of a fan through following. I don't remember about. I think Carl Anka, maybe Lori Whitwell. I think has just been. I think Lori Whitwell might be a fan of another club, actually, if I remember
Oh,
correctly.
interesting.
Um, but they're great. They're great at analyzing what they see, and it'll be fun for that reason. I mean, worst case scenario, we're getting food near Leicester Square. Is there anything good there?
Ooh, everything good there. It's Chinatown.
Then it sounds like we're gonna be doing Chinese or Indian food or something
There's some good stuff.
pan-Asian.
It's good Vietnamese. There's good Japanese there. Good.
All right, we are at the 1 hour mark, Jeff. So I would love it if the last little topic is positive
Ooh.
for both of us.
Huh. That'll be different.
Best of the trip or favorite thing in the rest of the trip, which I just came up with that. Saying best of the trip, rest of the trip.
That's a good rhyme. I'm not sure if I know what it means.
You're just picking one thing that
So
either
pick
is a
one
highlight
thing.
from the past
Best
or
of
from the
the
future.
Edinburgh trip or the best of the Schuyler coming to London trip?
Me.
You.
Best of the Schuyler part.
Oh,
But
man.
is it
So
just
many.
basically
Just to see you. It's great.
best thing from the past or the immediate future?
Best thing from what?
That's what it is. It's the best thing from the trip so far or the rest of the trip to come.
I mean, honestly, like getting to see Arsenal United together is something that like so many planets had to align for that. Things that happened outside of even our plan for this trip had to fall in place, and it did. So that was pretty cool. And I'm glad that we won and not you. And that was also awesome. So I would say that moment might be in a best of the trip for me. Would understand if it was a little further down the pecking order for you, but
I can't wait to say goodbye to you, you son of a bitch.
can't escape.
The truth is that I think my favorite part of the trip has been us playing Diablo 4 locally.
I was gonna say I have really enjoyed that as well. Schuyler has gotten me from a non-player. I'm not a non-player character. I wasn't an NPC. I was just a non-player to a player to a level 26, I believe, necromancer.
I don't think you might be 27.
27. Oh wow, losing track. Look at that.
You're too old for Leonardo DiCaprio to date. Let me edit my answer. Actually, the other favorite part of the trip was seeing Jeff's improv group, the non-recyclables. After all of the comedy I saw on this trip, which was multitudes.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
And Jeff and I went to comedy the other night, and we ended up being
we were the comedy.
We were the comedy. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to Nathan Cassidy at the Nathan Cassidy, and Ollie Horn at Ollie Horn Comedy. Both of them thoroughly engaged us during their sets.
At one point, I literally thought I shouldn't share more information because this is almost all you need to get a credit card with my name on it.
I mean, like, Jeff, like, what kind of stuff was happening? You don't have to give your social, but like, what?
They did ask at one point, like, so wait, because this is actually like an interesting crowd work thing that I hadn't seen before. But he would ask people their last names because I feel like for so many people there is some sort of like history or thing to that. And so my last name is weird. My last name is Vitkin, so he was like talking about it quite a lot. But I don't know. He really went in on that.
And he had people exploring your portfolio website.
Oh yeah, because he went to my Instagram. Then at one point he asked my mother's maiden name, didn't like that. But like he was all over. And then he was like he went from the Instagram. I mean, it shows you how easy I am to stalk because I have my stuff out there. So like he went to my Instagram, that led him to my website. Then he was like, "Oh, maybe I see you have this like spot here with LeBron James. I might need your help. I'm going to talk to you later."
The worst part was that he knew that you and I both worked in advertising, and he's like, Jeff worked on a spot with LeBron James. I forgot to mention that I too have worked on a spot with LeBron James. That would have been funny.
You mentioned an obscure ice cream company, and then he was like, "Moving on."
I also said Apple, and then one of the I can't remember if I might have been Ollie. It was like, "What do Apple need to advertise for? Has everyone here heard of Apple?" And I was like, "Because I did a good job."
Yeah, that's funny.
I know, it was a rare moment of sounding funny to anyone that lives here. This has been a good trip, Jeff.
Yes, it has. Thank you for all the things. You've been very, very kind and been an amazing house guest.
You hear that, single ladies? I am awesome. So to all the single ladies, this is Schuyler and Jeff.
You know what? I don't know what kind of partner he would make single ladies. I'm not endorsing that. He makes a good house guest, but that's very different than a marriage. So
isn't that it's basically the same but longer duration of stay?
It is. I do think vaguely as a man, you're not quite a guest. You're like an elevated status of that. But like it is a little bit like being a guest. You're like, oh, am I allowed to put my towel over here? Is this all right? You use it first. Okay.
There's always a standing back rub available. I'm great. All right, should we say goodbye?
We should say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Meet the suckers. Meet the